Got to take the pool to the loo. Is it getting hot outside?
I don't know. It felt pretty temperate when I came in, but I sent Stanley an invite, but he's not popping on, so maybe he's not showing up today. I'll just have to watch the recording again.
We'll squawk, I suppose, if he's able to. Are we recording?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, so hi, Stanley, if you're there. So we've looked at triangulation algorithms, and what we get out of them is
a bunch of triangles. On a polygon. So let me just triangulate Minnesota here just for the heck of it. So there's Minnesota, and there's a little humpy thing out here. So vertices look like this. And I don't know, here's one way to triangulate Minnesota in case anybody cares. And it really is not particularly important here. But the deal is, what is important is that there's a relationship between lots of things here. There's relationships between the triangles. For example, above and below, or next to, as in the case here. So above, below, next to, and that sort of thing. There's also relationships between the vertices in the triangle. So vertex, triangle relationships. Is, I guess if you think of it as like a query, you could say like, is X the vertex of, triangle, specific triangle. Those sorts of things. The triangles are simply sets of three vertices, and these relationships are, they're dependent upon the polygon and the way that those triangles lie inside the polygon. So in some sense, they're topological relationships, or really there's topological information that we get by doing the triangulation, that we get by having a polygon and having a triangle set that come out of it. And so simply getting the triangles isn't necessarily, I mean, simply having the triangles is like a list or an array of the triangles that result from a triangulation isn't necessarily the easiest way to deal with then using those triangles for something useful. So, in fact, right now, the only thing useful that I can think of for having a list of triangles would be to do something like, find the area of Minnesota, where you'd add up all the areas of the triangle. So, something that is other than just simply sequentially processing all the triangles that you get becomes a little bit harder. For example, if I wanted to know all of the triangles that vertex X belong to, I'd have to go through that whole sequence. And I'd have to check, given a bunch of triangles, I'd have to go all the way around each of those and look for X. So things wouldn't necessarily be, all that convenient. And really, triangulating a polygon is just like a first step in processing the polygon, usually. So we want to make things reasonably easy for subsequent steps that come from those triangles. Or really, well, I'll just leave it at that. And so people have come up with, in fact, Preparata, one of the sort of basic dudes in computational geometry, was among a small group of people that came up with a really cool data structure for representing, well, like a triangulation, but really a subdivision of a planar object. And we're going to look at that today and a little bit tomorrow. It's called a doubly connected edge list. DCEL is it's way too long to write out frequently, but it means doubly connected edge list. And what it is a clever way to capture all of the topological data as well as the physical data. By physical, I mean the physical data for the individual subdivisions. What it links together three sort of sets of data. So, link's a bad word because I'm using the word list as well. Together, three sets of data. I guess there are links in this link. The three sets of data are, we certainly have the vertices of the objects. We've got the edges. Well, that ought to be in there since that's part of the title. And then, so we've got the triangles, the individual subdivisions that we've made here. When we're talking about doing anything on a plane and subdividing it into regions, what we ultimately get are their faces. The sort of generic term, our faces happen to be triangles, but if you think of subdividing the plane into pieces, they don't necessarily have to be triangles. So faces is kind of the generic term here. It keeps track of the geometric, topological information. By geometric, I guess that would be sort of like the vertices that are involved. The topological information would be like this next to business or belongs to information for the vertices and the triangles. And if you think of like computer graphics or objects in games, there's other stuff as well. We might like paint color Minnesota with different colors. So I'd have a color associated with each of these chunks. We might have hair on the surface of a creature, and that creature is subdivided into reasonable little chunks. So there's attribute information that well, really we're not doing anything significant with at this point, but those sorts of things can also be incorporated into the faces. So we're positioned a little bit different today, so I've got a little bit more room here. I can actually go down. Well, maybe
I'm not sure how
not.
legible
Yeah,
it
it is kind of tiny at that end, so maybe I'll just work off of sort of two panels here. It's got more of the board in it today than we had yesterday. But there's the issue of the range of your camera. So the main idea is, well, it takes a little bit to sort of justify what in my mind is the main idea. But the deal is we've got edges between vertices, or they're line segments between vertices, and these edges between the vertices define the faces of the, in this case, triangulation. So obviously edges and vertex have a relationship, but also edge and face. And for that matter, since the edges are, well, if we think of the faces as, here's a triangle, the face is also related to the vertices. So there's a vertex and face. All three of these kinds of relationships are present. And consequently, the doubly connected edge list is going to have to kind of keep those relationships going. Let me start out with a triangulation of a quadrilateral. I'll try to remember the order that I wanted to do these things in. Well, okay, so just consider this quadrilateral, this four-dot. Okay. And it's not very interesting. I care about X and Y initially. So when I triangulate this, an obvious triangulation introduces this diagonal. And now I'm triangulated. And so I get two faces. Let me put a question mark on that. But I certainly have two faces from the way that we've been doing stuff. It's an E, it looked like a T. I have 5 edges, I believe, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then the new one is 5. And there's 4 vertices in this. So rock and roll. I've triangulated a polygon. Let me put the other names in here. So Z and W. I want to look at XY. I want to look at this diagonal that I introduced in particular. So the triangulation that I got, XY, that diagonal is related to 2 triangles, 2 faces in this triangulation. And so that kind of suggests that XY might be unique as opposed to XW and WY and is the two-ness of this unique to this edge? And obviously I wouldn't be asking that question if the answer wasn't something that you don't immediately think of. But in fact, the part of it that's unique is that it is a diagonal. So there's interior polygon on the above it and interior polygon below it. But thinking of faces as being defined by edges, period, stopping with that. In fact, I have a face that's outside of all of these that's defined by the edges. So if I look at the segments or edges given by Z, XZ, XW, WY, and YZ, all of these guys define the polygon. They define the interior of the polygon, right? I mean, that's the quadrilateral that we started with. But in fact, that splits the plane into 2 chunks. So we've got the inside, which is what we've been focusing on when we do the diagonalization or the triangulation. But we've also got the outside. So the plane itself has been split up into 2 chunks, the innards and the outers. And in fact, this outside, we made faces in here when we triangulated. But the outside is still out here. So it's, we could think of it in that respect as an additional face. Additional face.
Now, are we gonna like get really anal about it and just define the polygon itself as a face along with like its additional subfaces? Like is X, Z, Y, W a face along
No,
with X,
no,
Y? Okay.
no. No, once we've done the triangulation, we have these faces.
Okay.
But what I'm trying to get at is we also have an outside face so I'm thinking about after we've done the triangulation, we've got this junk going on. So we've got this junk going on. But so we've got now three faces, the two that are in the polygon, the two that result from our triangles, and then the face that's outside. And if you view it that way, then XY is related to two faces. It's related to this face and this face, but also this edge is related to the face that's inside and the outside face. So in fact, with this view of things, all of the edges are related to two faces. If you don't, if you don't take this view, then we wind up having to deal with edges in two different manners. Well, we're still going to have to deal with edges in two different manners, but we wind up having to deal with the big deal comes with XY in this, because if I think of the triangle, the two triangles, the two interior faces that I made up here, and think of how I would list them. So list your triangles. So if I think of the upper triangle, the cool thing about triangles is you're sort of forced to do one of two things. I can list the upper triangle. I'm going to list it like this: X, Y, Z, for a couple reasons. That's alphabetically what happens, but also that's the counterclockwise ordering. I could also call it, X, Z, Y, which is the clockwise ordering. That's not unreasonable. But it doesn't matter which way I do it, when I then throw in the other triangle, if I list it as, so if I look at the lower, I could call it, I'm going to call it XWY, but I could also reasonably call it XYW. If I call it XWY, so the XYZ means I'm going around this guy like this, right? And XWY, I'm going around this guy like this. Now there's two things. First of all, if I'm going to pick an order to list my triangles in, clockwise or counterclockwise, I want to be consistent with that throughout. If I've got a million triangles, if I've triangulated Minnesota and I want to name those triangles, I need to name them consistently. So let's consistently name them in counterclockwise. So these are counterclockwise namings of the triangles.
Do we always start at the same point?
No, you can start any place.
Okay.
But we'll follow the same order. The second thing that comes out of this is, notice this XY edge. In the counterclockwise listing of however you want to call the upper triangle, ZXY for that matter, we go across it this way. Pick however you want to name the lower triangle in counterclockwise manner. XWY or YXW or WYX. But all these, as we list this guy counterclockwise, this XY edge we're doing in the opposite direction. There's an issue. And it's an issue that makes, especially when you're trying to code stuff. How am I going to treat that edge? Do I treat it from X to Y, or do I treat it from Y to X? And if I think about trying to make a general data structure to hold my triangles or my faces from a planar subdivision, I'm going to encounter this which direction do I do this frequently. And well, and the solution that is used in the DCEL, in the doubly connected edge list, is to treat edges as pairs of edges, pairs of directed edges. So what do I want to say here? Well, so these pairs of directed edges are called half edges, which seems sort of weird, except that, you know, I've got a pair of vertices and there's an edge between them, and in some cases I want to treat that edge as going this direction, and in some cases I want to treat that edge as going this direction. So each of these are half edges. And half edges, there's a relationship between them. Each half edge has a twin. That's the name for it. The guy that it's paired with, and each half edge can be part of a counterclockwise listing of a triangle or other subdivision. So each half edge how do I want to say this? Let me say it differently. A face is made up of is defined by the half edges that go around it, that are its boundaries, in counterclockwise order as you go around it. So I'm going to take the this just redraw it. So I've got a little bit of range here, and this is just a picture. So we put ZWXY, and so I've got these edges that are involved, or half edges that are involved. Vertices. And let's just name all the parts here. So this is phase 1, this is phase 2, and phase 3 is what's outside. Maybe I should do that one here. Phase 3 is what's outside. Each of these edges, I've given them names. So the first edge is up here, and I call this E11 for the edge that goes from Z to X, and 1, 2 for the half edge that goes from X back to Z. And then I've continued to label like that. So this is E21 and E22, E31 and E32. This is E41 and E42. And then the one that goes the diagonal here is 5. So this is E51, E52. Stanley, I hope that's readable. If it's not, I'll try to I'll try to draw it and post it on the webpage. Because I'm going to talk about the stuff that's going on here off of this particular diagram. So now triangle X, Y, Z is made of the edges E51, E41, and E11. Right? That's X, Y, Z. Similarly, the lower face, triangle X, W, Y, is made of the edges E21, E22, and E52. I'm sorry, E21, E31. It's 31. And E52. So now I don't have any ambiguity in how I treat the edge that goes between X and Y. When I need it to go counterclockwise for the lower face, it's E52. When I need it to go counterclockwise for the upper face, it's E51. It's edge 5, but I've got the two half edges out of the deal. So this half edge business is the basis for this doubly connected edge list data structure. And what we do is we keep track of vertices, half edges, and faces. So there's like the DCEL keeps records for vertices, half edges, and faces. And we'll take each of these apart. They're not all the same. They're all actually quite different. It's the half edge record that really has the has most of the stuff in it. For a vertex, so all right, so a vertex record. I'm trying to sustain the as much of the non-buzz as I can. I wonder maybe is that noisy? Did you hear?
It's not coming up. Oh, that is a little bit.
Yeah, maybe I better leave it on hold. Maybe I'll just reposition it here so it's going up here. The vertex record is pretty straightforward. It's got the coordinates of the vertex. You know, it's X and Y coordinates. We're in the plane. But it also has a half edge that has the vertex as an origin. And this is sort of arbitrarily chosen. It doesn't have all of them. It has one. So obviously for a vertex, you'd want to know its coordinates, but maybe less obviously. So like for W, I would have, you know, it's at position, its coordinates are AB, and I would pick one of the two edges that come out of it as the half edge that has the vertex as its origin. With a face record, I'll do that over here. Kind of want to have all three types up on the board at the same time. So the face record has an arbitrarily chosen half edge on its boundary. And you see, like, wait, it's defined by a bunch of half edges, so why just one of them? The idea is that this can be used to do a counterclockwise traversal of the boundary. So basically, it's like where would you start to traverse the outside of the face? That must mean that there's a connection among the half edges so that you know who to follow next, and that's exactly the case. The half edge record has a bunch of stuff in it. It has its origin, the vertex that it's coming from. It has its twin half edge, the half edge in the other direction. It has the face on its left. So it has, so the origin has a relationship, has a connection to the vertex records. The twin has a connection to another half edge records, and the face has a connection to the appropriate face record. It also has a next, which makes this business of traversing the boundary happen. It's the next half edge. So like over in this diagram, if I look at E21, its next would be E31, the next in whatever the face is that it defines. And then a previous, sort of the same idea, the previous half edge. So it's predecessor. Again, over here for E21, its previous would be E52 because E21's face is F2, and so we're going around F2. Lots of times, it's convenient. It's not necessary, but lots of times for convenience, people add a target, which is just the vertex that the edge goes to, that the half edge goes to. So origin and target are the two vertices that the half edge is between. You don't really need that because you can get at it easy. Like if I'm half edge, so let's pick on E21. It comes out of X and goes to W. So target for E21 would be W. But in fact, if I do E21 and just look at its twin and look at the origin of its twin, I can get that, just by sort of following that logic. Now I'm gonna make up the tables of information for the double connected edge list for that triangulation over there. Just so that you can see what the pieces are. Unfortunately, the edge table has like 10 parts to it, but that's just, I guess that's just life. So for the example, and by that I mean that example over there, Stanley. If it's too hard to see what I've got on the board, it's the triangulation of that quadrilateral. The vertex table looks like this, or the vertex records. Just write it as a table. It looks like vertex coordinates, which aren't particularly interesting here, and then the half edge that's incident to it. So I've got 4 vertices. I've got X, Y, Z, and W. I'll make up some coordinates. So like A1, B1, A2, B2. You know, these would be wherever the vertex lies in the plane, and who the heck knows where that is. God, I couldn't come up with 4 here. I've really got a buzz started here today. I suppose the toxicity builds up across the week, and then it just comes easier, or it comes quicker. But my half edges, I've got E21, E41, E11, and E31. These are the parts that are ultimately going to matter here. So that's the vertex records. I'm going to try to wedge the faces in here. For face, we just had, you know, additional information and then the edge that comes out of it. So I've got 3 faces, F1, F2, and then that exterior one, F3. And the edge for the F1, I've got 5-1 listed, 2-1 listed for F2, and then, I don't know, it looks like E32 for the big outside face. And then the edge table, the half edge table, which is large because there are the 5 things associated with each one of the edges. I'm not buzzed up enough. I don't know if I can actually make a table here. So I've got the edge, I've got its origin, I've got its twin, its face, its next, and its previous. And I'm going to have some kind of guidance here. So let me just draw a couple of vertical lines just to keep myself drifting too far afield. So E11, so that's this edge here. Its origin is Z, its twin is E12, and its face, it's associated with F1, and next for that face is E51, and previous on that face is going to be E41. So again, this is the half edge I'm looking at. So its origin is up here at Z. The face that's associated with it is F1. Its twin is, you know, just the other guy here. Next is relative to the face. So next means who is it that follows me as I go around F1, and so that's E51. And its previous is again relative to the face. So who came before me around this face, it's E41. And that's kind of what happens with the rest of these. Maybe if I hold my breath and write really quickly, E12 is the other half of this. Its origin is X, its twin is E11. It's associated with the exterior face, F3, and where am I here? And E42, E22. That's a 2. So horizontal line, E21 and E22. We got X and W, E22, and E21, better be, you get twins, and then F2 and F3, and then E31 and E12, E52, and E32. 5, 6. That much space. So E31, E32 are W and Y, and each other, and F2 and F3, and E52, E22, and E21, and E42. And E41, E42, it's Y and Z, each other. E11 and E32. Oops, what have I done here? What I've done is I've gotten the close. Here we go, F1 and F3. This is the and one more set. So X and Y. Oops, E1. Oops. Now, unless I'm too buzzed up to copy my table correctly from my notes, this ought to reflect what's going on over here in this guy. So let's just pick an arbitrary entry. So E41, that's this guy. He starts at Y. Okay, now it's going that way. So it starts at Y. His twin, his face, his successor or next, and his predecessor. Okay, I got that rule right. That's where I was getting pretty snaky. So I must have got most of it correct just by the looks of it. So if we have these tables, or if we have a data structure that implements these tables, let's think about things that you could do with this. So the first thing that we might want to do is, suppose we want to walk around face F1. So the enemy comes up to you and says, walk around F1. All right, what would you do? Well, you go to the face table and you look up F1. F1 starts at E51. So I'd go to the edge stuff, E51. I'm supposed to walk around the face. I'm supposed to walk around F1. So E51, my next is E41. All right, so first of all, here's the face. E51 is this edge. My next edge is E41. E41, his next is E11. So 41 brings me here. I could output the Y, I could output the X, output the Y, output the Z, and then follow that edge and know that I'm back where I started from. So you know, given a query, find the edges for face F1. I can pick it out by following the appropriate links out of this. So if I wanted to print out the vertices that are associated with the face, same sort of business. I get the face and I follow the information in the other stuff. Think of a different. Suppose I'm at one of the faces and I want to find the adjacent faces. So like this isn't very interesting in this simple diagram, but suppose I'm at face 1. So suppose I'm at, let's use a different face. I'm at F2 and I want to find the adjacent faces. So the enemy says, you're at F2, name all the faces you're adjacent to. Well, I go over here to F2, I find my edge, E21. E21 has a twin that goes the other direction, and of course, when you pass to your twin, you then now have a different face on your left. So what did I have? I had E21. My twin is E22. E22's face is F3. Okay, that's the exterior face. E21's, how do I want to do this? Where is E21? E21's previous is F52, and F52's twin is E51, and E51's face is F1. So, you know, for face type questions, it's a matter of following the links around to find the stuff that you need. I think that's enough for me. I think anything else I would say I wouldn't even believe at this point. So this is like the introduction to the doubly connected edge list data structure. We're going to look at it, use it for a couple of additional things tomorrow. Certainly look at a larger example, and then we're going to have another programming project for the week. So I guess I'll just shut the heck up there. So any questions, Stanley? See ya.